You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your PMP certification journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Stakeholder management exists to make sure the people who matter most are aligned, deciding, and supporting delivery. It is the deliberate work of turning relationships into predictable decisions. At its simplest, the purpose is to reduce surprises, accelerate approvals, and increase adoption by matching communication and engagement to what each person actually needs to decide or act on. Use stakeholder work at kickoff to set expectations, at major pivots to recheck alignment, and whenever signals show drift so you do not discover misalignment on the release day. Treat stakeholder management as a delivery discipline, regular, observable, and accountable, rather than as occasional politicking. That framing keeps it practical and measurable. When done well, stakeholder management produces fewer surprises, faster approvals, and higher adoption, because the right people hear the right facts at the right time in the right form. Fewer surprises means fewer emergency meetings and less disruptive rework. Faster approvals shorten cycle time and prevent stalled paybacks. And higher adoption ensures end users and sponsors actually realize the intended benefits. These outcomes are achieved by translating stakeholder needs into clear, executable plans agreements on who decides what, how decisions are documented, and how feedback changes the product. Think of stakeholder work as clearing the runway so the project can land smoothly when the time comes. Use this toolkit proactively, as projects start to shape roles and expectations, before major changes to align sponsors and integrators, and whenever you notice signals that alignment is fraying. Make stakeholder mapping an early agenda item and revisit it at planned cadence points so the map does not go stale. When a new leader appears, a regulatory notice arrives, or a vendor introduces a new dependency, treat those as triggers to re-engage stakeholders. Pause and think. By keeping stakeholder attention intentional and scheduled, you avoid last-minute scrambling and increase the odds that decisions are timely and well-informed. Mapping stakeholders starts with simple categories: who cares, who decides, who implements, and who is affected, and avoids jargon by using plain labels like interest, influence, and attitude. Interest captures how much someone will gain or lose. Influence is their ability to affect decisions or resources. Impact is how much the project changes their work, and attitude is whether they're likely to support, resist, or sit neutral. Use a simple grid or table to record these qualities and update it as people change roles or views. The map becomes a living asset when it includes contact preferences and known constraints. So engagement is practical, not theoretical. Surface hidden players early. Operations, security, procurement, regulators, and end users often hold requirements or constraints that do not surface in initial discussions, but their late input can block delivery. Run short interviews or a targeted checklist with each function to surface constraints like maintenance windows, audit needs, or regulatory submission cycles. Capture each hidden player on the map with a brief note about their key concern and the decision they must sign off. Doing this work early saves rework later, because you factor operational and compliance realities into the design rather than shoehorning them in at the end. Keep the stakeholder map living rather than static. Record expectations, decision timelines, escalation points, and known constraints so it becomes the canonical record of who matters and why. Revisit the map at major milestones or when a signal appears. Someone unexpectedly asks for a new requirement, approvals are delayed, or a vendor introduces a dependency. Use simple versioning or a dated snapshot so you can show how views changed over time. A living map helps you anticipate who needs to be involved in trade-offs and prevents surprises when schedules are tight or scope choices are contentious. Planning engagement is about converting the map into explicit objectives for each stakeholder. Inform, consult, co-create, or decide. For each person or group, state the objective plainly. Do they need a one-line update, a consulted prototype, a workshop to shape requirements, or a final sign-off? That clarity shapes forum choice. A demo is right for co-creation, a short memo suits informing, and a structured review with criteria aligns decisions. Assign relationship owners who maintain recurring contact and define explicit decision timelines so stakeholders know when they will need to commit and what evidence they will be shown. Choose engagement forums to match objectives. Use workshops for co-creation, demos for product feedback, interviews for deep requirements, and formal reviews for approvals. Be pragmatic about forum design limit duration, prepare clear outcomes, and send a short pre-read so participants arrive prepared. When scheduling, factor in accessibility constraints such as time zones and required participants, availability so sessions are efficient and inclusive. Where possible, combine forums to avoid repeated meetings. A short workshop that ends with a live demo can both gather input and build alignment around next steps. Assign relationship owners who act as the accountable bridge between the project and each stakeholder segment. These owners should be empowered to surface constraints, escalate decisions, and retire issues. Relationship owners maintain touchpoints, manage expectations, and shepherd stakeholders through decision timelines. Provide owners with a simple engagement playbook: what evidence the stakeholder expects, the cadence of updates, and the preferred channel, so interactions are consistent and predictable. Having named owners prevents diffusion of responsibility and keeps conversations productive. Execution and facilitation focus on building shared understanding, logging decisions, and resolving conflicts with clarity rather than emotion. Use concrete acceptance criteria and examples to create mutual understanding. Show a short example of what done looks like for a feature, and link that example to the approval question. Facilitate sessions to surface trade-offs and document decisions in line so the record is immediate and authoritative. Capture the who, what, when, and why of each decision, and publish it quickly to the single source of truth to prevent later, "I thought we agreed" disputes. When conflicts arise, resolve them by clarifying benefits, constraints, and trade-offs rather than by appealing to authority or preferences. Map the options in plain terms: what changes, who is impacted, and what the cost or schedule effect will be, and facilitate the stakeholder to a choice. Use data when possible: impact on users, compliance risk, cost delta, and present 2 or 3 feasible options instead of open-ended questions. Pause and think. This structured approach reduces friction and speeds resolution because the conversation moves from opinion to consequence. Show how feedback changed outcomes to close the loop and build trust. When a stakeholder suggestion is adopted, document the change and its effect. When a suggestion is not adopted, explain why and what alternative actions were taken. This visible loop reassures contributors that their input matters even when it is not implemented wholesale. Make closing the loop a ritual, a brief note summarizing the session's decisions, who owns follow-up actions, and when the next check-in will occur. That ritual fosters ongoing engagement and reduces repeated queries about past choices. Monitor stakeholder health by watching for practical signals like silence when you expect questions, repeated rework requests, conflicting directives, or late approvals. These are early indicators of misalignment that deserve immediate attention. Silence can signal disengagement or inability to respond. Repeated rework suggests unresolved requirements, conflicting directives show competing priorities, and late approvals often indicate either risk aversion or overloaded calendars. Track these signals in simple trackers and triage them to relationship owners for targeted action. Adjust cadence, forums, and message framing based on observed signals. Shorten or lengthen updates, move from async summaries to live workshops, or change the framing from technical detail to business impact to suit the stakeholder. For example, an executive group may prefer a one-slide impact summary, while integrators need an interface-level walkthrough. Be willing to retire low-value touchpoints and concentrate attention where decisions actually happen. Pause and think. Adaptation keeps engagement efficient and aligned to real decision needs. Measure engagement quality with pragmatic indicators such as decision cycle time, adoption rates, and stakeholder satisfaction rather than vanity metrics like email volume. Decision cycle time measures how long it takes from a decision request to recorded decision. Adoption rates track whether deployed features are actually used. And quick satisfaction pulses capture stakeholder sentiment. Use these measures sparingly and review them at cadence events to inform whether your engagement plan is working or needs retooling. Finally, preserve the stakeholder map, engagement decisions, and outcomes as part of project artifacts so future teams inherit both relationships and the reasoning behind past choices. A durable record accelerates new onboarding, supports audits, and prevents repeated explanations to the same stakeholders. Treat stakeholder work as a continuous documented discipline. Map, plan, engage, log, adapt, and repeat. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Agile stakeholder engagement is simple and continuous. Instead of waiting for big milestone reviews, you keep stakeholders involved through frequent demonstrations, short refinement sessions, and transparent backlog priority, so priorities are expressed in what the team plans next. In plain terms, Agile treats stakeholder input as part of the delivery loop. Reviews show working increments, refinements surface trade-offs early, and backlog order signals what the team will focus on next. For people-first clarity, label Agile touchpoints by purpose: quick demo, decision needed, or feedback only. This keeps involvement lightweight and focused so stakeholders give timely direction without needing long formal reports. Predictive engagement is structured around stage gates and formal sign-offs because some decisions require packaged evidence and a clear audit trail. Use predictable reviews, formal documentation, and pre-agreed acceptance criteria to satisfy governance and regulatory needs. In practice, this means preparing evidence packets before each gate, scheduling stakeholders to review and sign, and recording the outcome in the project record. Keep descriptions simple. Predictive contact equals scheduled review plus packaged evidence. When you explain this to stakeholders, emphasize what they will see and when. This reduces anxiety and speeds approvals. Hybrid approaches combine the speed of Agile with the defensibility of predictive methods by protecting cadence for routine work while inserting governance checkpoints for major handoffs. The key is translation. Make a live dashboard or demo feed directly into the structured evidence package required at the next gate so reviewers can see both the ongoing state and the packaged artifact they need. Protect the team's sprint rhythm for delivery while pre-scheduling milestone-level evidence collection. When you plan hybrid engagement, name which artifacts serve both purposes to avoid double work and keep everyone aligned. Difficult stakeholders and political dynamics are often symptoms of misaligned incentives or unmet needs. Diagnosing those root causes is more productive than reacting to tone or pressure. Start by mapping what the person stands to gain or lose, what decisions they control, and what constraints they face: budget, schedule, reputation, compliance. Use that simple diagnosis to structure your options, present evidence, show trade-offs, and propose mitigations that address their real concerns rather than surface complaints. Pause and think. This approach reduces adversarial standoffs and opens pathways to negotiated outcomes grounded in shared facts. When politics surface, use evidence and options before escalation. Show the data. Present two feasible choices with concrete impacts, and ask the stakeholder which trade-off they prefer. Structured options convert emotional bargaining into pragmatic negotiation. Describe the cost, schedule effect, and who is impacted for each choice. Escalate only after analysis and an attempt to resolve locally, and when you do, escalate with a concise brief that documents the prior offers and the unresolved gap. Keeping the process documented preserves relationships because decisions look like reasoned trade-offs rather than hidden power plays. Always keep relationships professional and document rationale for decisions. This protects people and clarifies why a path was chosen. When you must record disagreements or political pressure, do so factually. Summarize what was proposed, who objected, why, and what alternatives were offered. That documentation becomes invaluable if the issue resurfaces later, or if someone questions why a particular trade-off was accepted. Simple and neutral language prevents defensiveness and preserves the working relationship, even when the outcome disappoints a stakeholder. Integrating stakeholder engagement with communications and governance means aligning your engagement plan with the project's cadence and the thresholds that trigger escalation. Practical alignment looks like this. Map which engagement events feed which governance reviews. Make those links explicit in the communications plan, and publish escalation SLAs so people know how quickly they will get a response when a blocker appears. When you align these pieces, stakeholders see how day-to-day updates roll up into formal decisions and can trust that urgent issues will be handled within the agreed service window. Clear decision rights are the backbone of integration. Publish who may decide what, under which conditions, and how decisions are recorded. Use plain labels approve, consult, inform, so people understand authority without needing a legal glossary. Pair decision rights with an escalation path and a published SLA for response time so stalled approvals do not sit unattended. When governance is explicit and visible, teams spend less time guessing who to call and more time executing the decisions they already have. Keep a single source of truth that links status, decisions, and evidence so governance committees and stakeholders access the same factual record. That repository should show the stakeholder map, engagement logs, decision documents, meeting notes, and any artifacts promised during engagement. When someone asks, "What changed?" you can point to a dated entry rather than reconstruct from memory. A unified record reduces repeated explanations and makes audits or handovers straightforward because the history of choices and their rationales is discoverable and organized. Scenario: two high-influence leaders disagree sharply about a scope trade-off. One insists on adding a compliance feature that delays the release by 2 weeks. The other insists on meeting the original date to maintain customer commitments. Option A: escalate immediately to the steering committee and ask for arbitration. Option B: facilitate a joint session between the two leaders. Present concise impact analyses for both choices, co-create a compromise, and update decision logs. Option C: implement the compliance feature now and accept the 2-week delay without further consultation. Option D: postpone the decision and proceed with the current plan hoping neither leader escalates. Pause and think. The best next action is option B. Facilitate a focused joint session using benefit and constraint framing, because it brings both leaders into a shared fact space and creates room for a negotiated trade-off. Start the session with 2 clear artifacts: a 1-page impact summary showing the compliance requirement, the delivery implications, time, cost, scope, and a short list of mitigations such as phased delivery, partial compliance now with a follow-up patch, or temporary compensating controls. Guide the leaders to choose among these concrete options, document the decision, and publish it immediately to the decision log so downstream teams act on the same instruction. The strongest distractor is option A. Rushing to steering can politicize the issue and delay a practical compromise that leaders could reach together with the right facilitation. If a compromise is reached, update the stakeholder map and the engagement plan to reflect the new expectation. Assign owners to any follow-up actions and communicate broadly with the single source of truth link. If no compromise is found, escalate with a brief report that documents the options presented, their impacts, and the result of facilitated negotiation, so the steering committee has the context needed to decide. This disciplined path preserves relationships and keeps work from stalling. Common pitfalls in stakeholder work include broadcast-only updates that assume engagement, ignoring quiet constraints that later block delivery, and side-channel promises that undermine formal decisions. Broadcasting without tailored asks produces noise rather than alignment. Quiet constraints, like an overlooked regulation or a support team's unavailable window, become late surprises if not surfaced, and informal commitments from well-meaning staff create confusion. Watch for these traps by monitoring signals such as repeated clarifying questions, unexpected rework, or unauthorized scope changes. A quick, practical playbook keeps stakeholder work lean and effective. Map stakeholders simply. Plan engagement objectives for each. Choose forums that match those objectives. Execute sessions that produce documented decisions, and adapt based on signals. Tie each decision to a recorded rationale and owner so follow-up is actionable. Use easily measured indicators, decision cycle time and adoption rates to assess whether engagement is working and prune low-value touchpoints. Repeat the cycle. Map, plan, engage, log, adapt, and keep the focus on enabling decisions that deliver benefits while respecting governance. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.